Let me clear something up straight away, because this causes a lot of unnecessary stress. You are not being rejected because a robot doesn't like your CV. There is no secret ATS score quietly working against you. And most companies are not sitting there letting AI decide who gets hired and who doesn't. I know that's not what social media tells you, but it's the truth. Applicant tracking systems get blamed for everything at the moment. Every rejection, every silence, every we've decided not to move forward. And I get why. You apply online, you hear nothing, it feels impersonal, so people assume a machine made the decision. The problem is, most of what you hear about ATS is either massively exaggerated or just wrong. So let me explain how this actually works, based on how recruiters really use these systems. First of all, the ATS isn't new. It's not some recent AI invention that suddenly appeared and ruined job hunting. Applicant tracking systems have been around since the mid-1990s. They were built for one very boring reason: organization. Recruiters needed somewhere to store jobs, store candidates, and keep track of who applied for what. That's it. The first ATS I ever used, back in the early 2000s, could already store CVs, extract the text from them, and let you search for candidates based on what was written on their CV. So when people talk about ATS like it's some futuristic technology, it really isn't. Over time, they got more features: posting jobs to job boards, sending automated emails, scheduling interviews, building talent pools. But at its core, it's still just a system for managing volume. Today, there are hundreds of different ATS platforms: Workday, Greenhouse, Talio, Workable, ICIMS. Different names, different interfaces, but they all do more or less the same thing. And this is important to understand because how recruiters actually use them is very simple. A recruiter gets assigned a role. They speak to the hiring manager. They agree what they're looking for. Then they post the job. Applications come in, and the recruiter opens the role in the ATS and sees a long list of applicants. That's where the myth really starts. People imagine the ATS scanning every CV, scoring them, ranking them perfectly, and auto-rejecting anyone who doesn't hit some magic number. That's not what happens. What actually happens is this: the recruiter opens the list and starts reviewing CVs one by one. If a CV is clearly unsuitable, they change the status to rejected. That action triggers an automatic rejection email. It feels instant to the candidate, so they assume it was automated, but it wasn't the decision that was automated, only the email was. If a CV looks suitable, the recruiter moves it to the next stage and carries on. Now, sometimes people ask how those lists are ordered, and the honest answer is, it depends. In some systems, it's just by application date. In others, it's alphabetical. And in some, there's something called a closest match ranking. That feature has existed for years, long before anyone was talking about AI. It tries to compare what's in the CV with what's in the job description and produce a rough match. And I'm being generous when I say rough. It was never particularly accurate, and recruiters have never fully trusted it. And this is where AI comes into the conversation. Despite what you hear online, AI hasn't suddenly made this process incredibly smart. In reality, most organizations either don't use AI ranking at all, or they use it very cautiously. Why? Because companies are extremely risk averse when it comes to hiring. They don't want legal problems, they don't want bias issues, and they don't want to explain to a candidate that an algorithm made the decision. Even when AI features exist, recruiters still manually review CVs, including the ones at the bottom of the list. Now let's talk about something people misunderstand even more: auto-rejections. If you're being automatically rejected, it's almost never because of your CV. It's because of how you answered the application form. Things like saying you need visa sponsorship when the role doesn't offer it, or selecting a salary expectation that's completely outside the range, or saying you don't have a required qualification, or confirming you can't meet a non-negotiable requirement like travel or location. In those cases, the system can be set up to automatically reject you before a recruiter even sees your CV. That isn't AI being clever, it's just filtering based on your answers. And there's one more platform that causes confusion: LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not an ATS, but you can be rejected very quickly on LinkedIn, not because of your CV, but because of your profile. Recruiters can filter applicants by location, work authorization, and specific skills listed on your profile. If you don't meet those filters, you can be rejected almost instantly. Again, not your CV, not AI. Just filters. So why does this myth keep spreading? Because job hunting is hard right now. There are fewer roles, more candidates, and a lot of uncertainty. And when people are frustrated, they look for a reason. Add AI into the mix, and suddenly it's very easy to blame a system instead of a market. And unfortunately, there are plenty of people online who are happy to feed that fear. Because fear sells. Fear gets clicks. And fear makes people buy things they don't need. So here's what I want you to remember. The ATS is not new. Auto-rejections are almost always based on application forms, not your CV. There is no universal ATS score. And recruiters use these systems to manage volume, not to avoid thinking. The best thing you can do is stop writing your CV for a machine that doesn't really exist. Write it for a human. Make it clear. Make it honest. Show what you've done and what you're good at. If you want help with that, I've got a free CV template link below. And if this video helped, subscribe. I put out practical job search advice like this every week.